Pyongyang is an unlikely place to find North Korea's red star fluttering in the wind, but the Japanese capital is home to scores of North Korean schools and even, in its leafy western suburbs, Korea University. These institutions are an unusual legacy of Japan's difficult relationship with Korea. Most of the students were born in Japan, yet, like their parents, they remain loyal to the communist regime of Kim Jong-un. Over the last few months, our team in Japan has been spending time with some of those students, exploring their paradoxical world of living in one country while pledging staunch allegiance to another.
The school year got off to a tense start in Japan. Around 6,000 demonstrators gathered in the center of Tokyo to protest the exclusion of certain high schools from a national tuition waiver program. All of the excluded schools have historical ties to North Korea, and the people connected to them are enthusiastic supporters of the government in Pyongyang.
We gathered today to say in unison no to this outright discrimination, to our exclusion, and to the deprivation of our rights.
Japanese ultra-nationalists gathered alongside the road to shout their hatred toward the demonstrators, who they consider to be enemies of the nation.
If you don't want to be treated differently, leave Japan and go back to North Korea.
It's difficult to pin down an exact number, but experts estimate about 150,000 Japanese residents are supporters of the North Korean government. Their families came from the Korean peninsula to Japan, either voluntarily or as forced labor, when Korea was a Japanese colony prior to 1945. Their presence in Japan has given rise to a handful of pro-North Korean schools and even one university.
As everyone knows, this university is the only North Korean university based abroad.
The flag of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea's official name, flutters above the recreation ground at this Tokyo University. Educators here aim to imbue the 700 students with what they view as North Korean values.
Here is a good place to film, don't you think? Since this building was funded by the President Kim Il-sung, on the roof it is written, "Long lives great leader Kim Il-sung."
Just as in North Korea, portraits of the country's deceased leaders, Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, are everywhere, in each classroom and in the dorms.
We're 2 students living here, but 4 junior students are to arrive soon.
The students like eating potato chips and using their brand new mobile phones, luxuries that most North Koreans rarely, if ever, enjoy. The students were all born in Japan and have permanent residency here, but they nonetheless say their hearts are with North Korea. Some recall going to the north for an internship and catching a glimpse of the country's latest Kim family ruler.
I had only seen Kim Jong-un in the news. He was like some distant entity to me. So I was very surprised when I saw him. I have no words to express how I felt. I was so moved I just clapped my hands.
The young ladies speak Japanese as their native language, but they have studied Korean from a very young age. Still, when they arrived in Pyongyang, they had to improve their accent before being able to teach in a North Korean kindergarten.
We were able to understand what the children said, but the children had trouble understanding us. When we practiced our pronunciation, it got better.
Korea University is frequently accused of acting as a shill for the North Korean government, whitewashing its repeated nuclear weapons tests and severe human rights abuses. Critics say its curriculum is often anti-Japanese. An end-of-the-year performance dramatizes the oppression Koreans suffered at the hands of the Japanese during the colonial era.
In Japan, a lot of people have the wrong idea about us. They think just because we are teaching our students about the colonial period in Korea, that we are teaching them to be anti-Japanese.
Most of these students are bound to teach in North Korean schools or to become executives of Chongnyeon, an organization in Japan representing North Korean interests. They will play a key role in perpetuating a North Korean network in Japan, not just of schools, but also banks, insurance providers, and other organizations. But these days, more and more young people feel the need to distance themselves from this community, sometimes even renouncing their Korean citizenship.
I thought about changing citizenship. Some of my relatives have done so. This country does not recognize North Korea. However, we do. And we think holding on to DPRK citizenship is the right thing to do. We can get freedom only when we're changing citizenship. This is very humiliating. If we change nationality, it means we renounced our ideas.
North Korean schools in Japan receive about $2 million a year from Pyongyang, but reduced subsidies to schools all over Japan and changing generational priorities mean these schools and Korea University are losing students every year.
For more on this, I'm now joined on set by Antoine Bondaz from Paris-based think tank Asia Centre. Hello, thank you very much for coming in. Now, I'd like to focus on North Korea, but first a word on the report we just saw there. It ends by saying that money from Pyongyang is drying up, and also that many youths are only loyal to Pyongyang because of their parents, out of respect for their parents. But there's also the issue of how Japanese society treats them. At the beginning of the report, we saw people voicing their anger and asking them to leave, and it seems the atmosphere has only got worse.
Yeah, it is actually. There is a big problem in the Japanese society about the Korean ethnic nationals because they don't have the Japanese citizenship. They are Korean ethnic, and they never received that citizenship. Actually, you have two main organizations. One is kind of pro-North Korean, that's the one we've seen today. The other one is pro-South Korea, called Mindan. But it's still like a big social issue in Japan.
Now, Japan is one of a handful of states that doesn't have any diplomatic relations with North Korea. And since Kim Jong-un took over 2 years ago, it seems he hasn't really made any effort to get along better, so to speak, with his neighbours. If anything, he's been rather provocative, hasn't he?
Yeah, actually, you can see clearly a rise of tension last spring, 2013, in the peninsula. On the question of the establishment of diplomatic relations with Japan, actually the main issue is not the nuclear issue even. It's the issue of the abductees of Japanese citizens abducted by the North Korean government in the 70s and in the 80s. As regards the US, for example, or France, as long as North Korea is not clearly showing like any sign of denuclearization and improvement in the human rights issue, there is no way the country can be recognized.
So you mentioned the nuclear issue, human rights issue. Recently, Kim Jong-un had his uncle executed, a big upheaval. What do you think he was trying to achieve? Is it about establishing or demonstrating his authority, or is it a sign perhaps of instability?
Contrary to what many South Korean experts are saying about the instability of the regime, it's clearly a sign actually of the consolidation of Kim Jong-un power in North Korea, an increase actually of its leadership, and the purge actually that started already in 2012, started in 2012, and lasted in 2013 also, with Jang Song-taek, but before with Lee Yong-ho, the former vice marshal.
Now, not many foreigners have met Kim Jong-un. Recently, we've talked quite a bit about Dennis Rodman, the basketball player from the US, who's been over quite a few times. It gives Kim, obviously, a lot of publicity, but does it actually establish, does it achieve anything, do you think, politically or diplomatically? Or is it just for show?
Actually, it won't. There is no such basketball diplomacy as we had, actually kind of a ping-pong diplomacy between the US and China. Actually, the initiative taken by Dennis Rodman is a private one and will remain private. It's not supported by the US government.
Now, Kim says that he wants to better the lives of his countrymen. Any sign of him doing that?
Actually, it started when he came to power in 2012, saying that he didn't want North Korea to tighten the belt anymore. Actually, there is clearly a new strategy from the North Korean regime to the parallel development, of the nuclear capabilities and of the economic capacities of the state under the name of the Byongjin Line.
Okay, thank you very much, Antoine Bondaz, for coming in to us from Asia Centre. That's it for Focus, and that's it from me for now. I'll be back at the top of the hour with all the latest news. Thanks for watching, and do stay tuned to Fazon.